welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about why a whole food plant-based diet is the best way to eat for sustainable weight loss and optimal health. So let's talk about how fat loss actually works. In any type of fat loss program, it all comes down to being in a caloric deficit. And I have heard that over and over, you gotta be in a calorie deficit, you gotta be in a calorie deficit, you gotta be in a calorie deficit. So then what's the first thing we start doing? We start counting our calories and we see how much we're eating a day and how much we're expending a day. We all have a set amount of calories that we need in a given day for our body to do things like breathing, thinking, moving. We burn calories when we sleep. So we all have a set amount of calories that we have to consume for our bodies to do all the functions of daily life. Yes, we can agree that fat loss occurs because of a caloric deficit, but that is not everything. There's so many other aspects that need to be considered and addressed if you are going to have lasting fat loss. Some of these things that need to be addressed are your background, what has brought you to where you are now, what are your daily habits, what issues have you had in the past, what diets have you tried, what has worked, what hasn't. Basically, what has put you in the predicament and situation you are in now. And that obviously takes some time to dig into and get to, the bottom of it. You may have some areas from your past, some maybe emotional, spiritual damage that are now coming out in a different form of gaining weight and holding on to unnecessary weight. So there's so many things that need to be addressed, but we can agree on, if there was one thing we had to bring it down to, would be your body is burning more calories than it's taking in. So the issue with being in a caloric deficit is, one, it's not very easy, especially if you don't know what you're doing, to be in a caloric deficit, and it's not usually fun for the layperson. There are people that love calorie counting and tracking and macro counting, and that is how they reach their goals, but you don't have to do that to reach your goals. But being in a caloric deficit can be difficult to do. It's hard to know if your body's even actually in a deficit, and then what to do once you're on that deficit, and things like how you're going to maintain that deficit, how long you need to be on the deficit, what foods are right to be on that deficit. There's so many things that you have to be knowledgeable about when you are just going in a caloric deficit to lose weight. So it's hard to know if you're even in a deficit, and then what happens when you're in a deficit? What do you do next? How do you modify your daily habits? How do you modify your daily food intake? What do you do next? If you don't know how to be in a caloric deficit properly and a way that is not going to hurt you in the long run. Because if you are in a calorie deficit for too long, you can get metabolic damage, and it basically does a reversal process. Like if you are someone that diets all the time, you're always in a caloric deficit, meaning you're not eating a lot of calories, you're sitting at that 1200 calorie range, your body goes into starvation mode, and then it starts to hold on to all of those fat calories and all the calories you're piling on. So that's why it's very important to know what you're doing and get help. The thing is, it's hard to be in a deficit for a long time, and it actually is hard on your body when you are in a caloric deficit for a long time, and can really do some internal damage that's going to make you hold on to weight in the long run. So the reason a whole food plant-based diet is so good for sustainable fat loss is because the foods you eat on a whole food plant-based diet have a very low calorie density. So they don't have a lot of calories for the amount of beneficial nutrients they have in them. And so you can be eating large portions of food. That is the key on a plant-based diet, is to eat large volumes of food so you're full and you're nourished. But still, you can be eating 5 pounds of food, a very large volume, but be getting a lot smaller calorie density than if you were to eat the standard American diet that is rather very high in calories, but very low in nutrients. And that is why you can eat more and weigh less on a whole food plant-based diet, because you legitimately can eat a lot more volume of food with a lower calorie profile. So for example, take me on a whole food plant-based diet. I may be eating 5 pounds of food a day at 2,500 calories a day. Take my friend Bob, who's on a standard American diet. He may be eating the same amount of food, that 5 pounds of food, but his caloric intake could be way more like 5,000 instead of 2,500. And so if you do that day after day after day, you're gonna pile on the weight day after day after day. And that is why you have so many chronic diseases in America. You know, the standard American diet feeds obesity, it feeds disease, it feeds sickness. It's literally just a vicious cycle. People get sicker, people get fatter, we spend more money on medication, and obesity is the #1 problem in America today. Like, why is this not being talked about? Because whole food plant-based diets don't produce a whole lot of profit. So yeah, educate yourself. Don't be such a sheep to what the authorities are telling you, because they don't always have your best interest in mind. Yeah, that is how a whole food plant-based diet is best for sustainable weight loss and not dieting, because you can eat so much volume of food with a low calorie profile, and you are nourishing your body down to the cellular level just as it was designed to be. So yes, being in a calorie deficit is going to be the #1 answer to having fat loss, but it is important not to be in a caloric deficit for too long, because then you can have metabolic damage and your body will go into starvation mode and you will store fat instead of burn it. That is why eating a whole food plant-based diet is the best diet for weight loss and optimal health. Another thing though is why it's not just about being in a caloric deficit is because it really depends on the food that you're eating. If you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you are going to get everything that your body needs and craves and desires. If you're eating a standard American diet, you're going to be lacking in beneficial nutrients. The standard American diet is full of processed foods, animal foods, dairy products, things that aren't necessarily beneficial for your health. And anytime there is a good amount of nutrients in these products, it's because it originated from a plant. It's because an animal ate that plant, got that nutrients, and now it's in the animal's body. But there's so much more that you're getting when it comes from an animal, like toxins and chemicals and hormones and antibiotics, and you don't even know what, because a lot of it is non-disclosed. There's so much more that needs to be addressed, like I said, and these are things like your hormones, your blood sugar, your inflammatory markers, your toxic overload. And if you don't fix all of those other things, then you're not going to have sustainable weight loss. Weight loss and health is a very interconnected thing, and people forget how interconnected our bodies really are. If you have one thing that's out of balance, the whole body is going to be out of balance. So when you are on a weight loss journey or a health journey, it is very important to take a holistic approach. And that is what I do with my clients. We take a look at what's going on in the mind, first of all, the body, the emotional, spiritual issues that are going on. But yes, weight loss needs a holistic approach. It's not just about calories in, calories out. It's not just about what food you're eating, what types of food you're eating. It's also about the underlying healing that needs to happen. And so if you are on a weight loss journey and you don't know what to do, that is what I specialize in. That is what I help people with. I take a holistic, customized approach to each client. A cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all approach does not work. Everybody has their own unique background, circumstances, and things going on in their life that are either going to stop them or help them, progress towards their goals. And that is why, I give each client a customized one-on-one approach with them to give them the best unique results. So another thing too, There's too many weight loss programs on the market that are just quick fixes, that are a one-size-fits-all approach that do not work, and I've tried them, and you gotta quit wasting your money on them because they don't work. You need to find something that is a holistic one-on-one approach that's going to work with you to find your best results and help you succeed for the long term. I think that is all I have for you today. If you want more information on how a whole food plant-based diet can help you and your weight loss and health journey, then send me a message and I would love to help.